Hey Robert, I think somebody needs to give you the rights to turn on the mic. I'm not the admin, can't do it.
Good news. It's turned on, I think.
Nice. Okay. How you doing?
The usual. Pretty difficult over the last 2 months, especially over the last 2 weeks. Yeah. So who's all speakers here? We have yourself, Shades. We have Genius. I say whoever wants to speak. Whoever wants to speak, let's let them speak. That'd be fun. I'd really love to. I'd really love to chat on some of the points. With Genius and answer anyone's questions for those, because I know a lot of the concepts are pretty complex, and I've been working a lot on simplifying that language, and we've all been working a lot on simplifying that language, especially Hex Factor, Shades, Mike Vulcan in here, or Mike Vulcan from the community. And hello, Germ. I think, yeah, that icon won my heart. Your hamster icon won my heart. Shades, would you like to start with us talking about Genius Debt? I know there were some things I wanted to show you with that, and I know that that you understand it really well. It seems that people in the community are starting to really understand Genius Debt.
Yeah, I was gonna wait. Maybe somebody else has questions because I do have quite a few of them. But I'll start with. I just want to understand the kind of like different variations of locked debt, right? There's there's debt that gets locked up in a stability pool, and some of it exiled. I think we talked about it last time, but there is also like with miners, with advanced miners, I understand, right? There's advanced and there is basic. They're all together, form of a locked supply. But also there is this part that is inside of the collateral pool, and there are a couple of things that are exposed to us, which is like total issued, total cleared, and total. I can't remember what the third one was. I think it's total settled, right? So
Yeah, there's a lot of
I would
variables.
love if you could make. Yeah, but those are the kind of the main three that caught my eye, that I'm trying to figure out how they play into a locked supply, because I want to be able to see the ratio between advanced and miners to get advanced and basic miners together versus liquid supply, how that goes up, right? But also there's burn supply, but there is also a locked debt. When we say locked debt, what variations exist? And what should we be looking at? What counters should we be looking at to bring this into this equation?
What did you say? What did you say with? I guess you said locked debt. The debt locked, right?
Yeah, so basically there's like three types of locked, right? There's advanced and basic. Well, advanced, basic, and then debt. What is locked debt?
Okay. For anyone who doesn't know what's being referred to, by the way, just go to the Genius DApp at start.geni.app and go to the performance section. I'm going to go there too, just to follow that. All right. So, I realized a better name for this is committed, right? So I'll speak to it in that way, because after all, locked implies that, you can't unlock it, and committed is, a different story. So these are the supply accounting, right? Like in any blockchain, being aware of the accounting is important. Like that's why a lot of people look at the blockchain in the first place, even your own accounting. But here, the advanced locked is how much. See, the advanced lock is how many advanced miners are committed to mining. Now, this does include collateral miners, because after all, collateral miners they are also advanced miners. They just have a few little differences. The basic locked are the miners who have made a commitment to using the basic miner policy, which means that they're able to end their mining without losing their principal. Granted that they end it on time instead of late. Now the deadlocked is it's how many collateral miners there are, the principal amount. So it might not be Genius principal, it might be a combination of Genius principal and Genius debt principal. But that's basically the principal amount of the collateral miners that are committed to mining. Keep in mind that's also part of the advanced locked supply, right? Liquid supply is, of course, any Genius tokens that you can hold, you can transfer, you can trade without any limitations whatsoever, trade or redeem without any limitations whatsoever, and no taxes, because tax coins are getting popular, and I think it's good to mention that it's not a tax coin. And the burn supply is a combination of future rewards that could be paid out to all of the miners, but we really have no guarantee that those future rewards will ever get minted. So they do stay in the burn supply, but also in the burn supply are coins that are indefinitely burned. Like, they're burned forever. They're never resurrecting. They're never coming into supply.
So what you're saying is that deadlocked, if I understand you correctly, is part of advanced locked, right? It's just the collateral part.
Correct. It's
not
the collateral part.
So then maybe it's easier to think of it like advanced locked is divided in two parts: the true advanced, which is outside of the collateral pool, and debt advanced, right, which is inside of the collateral.
Correct. And with the debt locked amount, that tells you, like, excuse me. For example, whenever someone redeems their Genius token for collateral that's in the Genius contract, whenever someone redeems their Genius, and for anybody new to this, you can do that on the DApp in the stability pool section. There's a redeem section. When you redeem your Genius, the Genius you have ultimately is being distributed to all those miners that have their debt locked. So a lot of those miners, instead of their debt going back to the contract, they end up minting Genius itself. Like right now we have, I'm going to assume that there's 100% debt has been settled. That means that this debt amount that is locked, 100% of it will actually become the Genius token when they unmint that. And like 0% will be Genius debt itself returned to the contract. And I'm happy to get as advanced and in-depth as you'd like.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. The point that you've mentioned about burn supply that may come to liquid or be unlocked or unburned, are you talking about this exile that basically gets? So you have inflation that gets paid to would-be exiting collateral miners. They're stashed in a contract, and as they exit, they get, they get rewards from there, right?
Yeah,
like from
correct.
From that part.
Correct. And the exiled portion, the app doesn't mention anything about exiled stuff, because one, it's not accounted, and two, it's a very like nitty-gritty accounting detail that doesn't affect the accounting, but it's quite an advanced concept that refers to numbers that don't affect the accounting.
But I guess my question is, from burn supply, when we see burn supply, it can fluctuate not only up but down as well, correct?
Correct. It'll
Okay.
never reach zero though.
It will never reach zero, but it's never going to be, it's not going to only grow up. Like when you think about burned, it's kind of like, okay, it's no more, but in reality is just some part of it may come online as well.
Yeah, correct.
In the future.
Correct. Like when you have a system where you're minting coins, right? I think it's very important to know that potential of how much is going to be minted. So the burn supply gives you an outlook of the potential that could be minted. Now you can calculate how much is burned indefinitely, right? Especially with the wonderful Geni.best app. Go to the domain Geni.best, and it's awesome with analytics, statistics, in-depth rankings and such. The burn supply it's important to know what that potential is, and with an app like yours, it's possible, or an app like Geni.best, it's possible to figure out, well, how much of that was indefinitely burned. Just as a reference, when the penalties, when anyone ends early, if they hit penalties, whether it's on the interest or it's on the interest in the original genius made to create the miner, from penalties and proof of benevolence, about a quarter of it is always burned indefinitely.
Nice. And then 15% of it goes to the OA, correct? Well,
Correct.
About 15%.
Correct, 14.5.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no problem. You see, now one thing that I really, really want to show everyone, and especially Alex, who Alex was involved he was the PhD in mathematics and engineering that was very instrumental to Genius. It's senior curve, we call it. It's it's AI, it's solution to the growing divorce problem, etc. He didn't fully grasp the Genius debt and the stability pool and the collateral pool. Myself and two others, we got it, and we had like 90% confidence of where it was going and the simulations we ran and what we saw. But language-wise, we were really lacking on it. Really lacking. But we all got the idea. The idea was a pool where every time somebody redeems from it, instead of the price going down, the price goes up for the next person who redeems from that pool. So the Genius token becomes more valuable as people are redeeming or selling. And that hasn't been done in DeFi, but it can be. And Genius will be able to show that. Genius shows that today, but there comes a point where Genius will be able to show that 99% of the time, maybe 100% of the time, maybe 360 days out of the year, maybe 365 days out of the year. When is that point in time? Well, all of you who are listening, all Genius people, this is something that is like a future like milestone, is when the amount of Genius that can be redeemed, the Genius debt, when that number is greater than the liquid supply, that's when the amount that can be of Genius that can be redeemed for collateral is greater than how much is in circulation, then we're going to see the fact that it's impossible for the liquid supply to, they might be able to dump it on the market and drive the market down, thus creating a bigger arbitrage between the open market and what the Genius contract offers. But you'll have a situation where Genius becomes like the only asset in history that, well, there's other ones designed too, but I'd say the only asset in all of crypto that is over collateralized. That's huge. And Genius's tokenomics and supply accounting mechanics make that inevitable for the future. It's inevitable as long as people get utility from Genius, people want to use Genius, and there's attention on Genius. It's massive.
And to continue on with this, doesn't it point to a kind of private market within the stable pool where the focus is going to be on trading in and out of the debt, as opposed to going to the open market and buying liquidity from there, which at that point there's not going to be much of it, right? Only waiting for miners to come out and relying on the PSR in the debt pool to be able to either sell to it or keep it until it goes high enough to sell to it. Do you see a point where, in absence of liquidity, there's going to be more economy around debt rather than the actual DEX, right, where Genie trades?
Well, we have, yes, and, or a combination. What we have is, we have two things that I'd like to address. One is the concept that low liquidity is bad, right? You had the Hex World saying that, well, low liquidity is great because the price can go up so much. And now low liquidity is a double-edged sword. However, today, the other thing I'd like to mention here is what Genius has three types of liquidity. The world that we work in today with cryptocurrencies is amazing because, one, there's a centralized exchange. So there's like a government regulated exchange where you can do your trading on and feel all happy about that. And then there's decentralized exchanges where people feel very happy about that because they don't have to worry about surprise gotchas where the exchange decided they're going to lock your funds until they understand what on earth you're paying your money for, what on earth why you're liquidating so much. And also the gotchas of FTX crashing and burning and everybody losing their money. So today you have centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. And it's pretty awesome, especially for anybody who experiences it. And with Genius, though, you have three. You have an extra third one, and that's in-contract liquidity. It's much like what MakerDAO has. So, you can say that this does exist, but MakerDAO has, you can redeem your DAI for other collateral that's in the DAI pool, or I don't know if it's a direct redeem. But with Genius, so now you have three areas for liquidity. You have centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and the contract itself. So before I said, well, is low liquidity bad? Like on the open market, people consider low liquidity bad. Mexicans consider it good because then they get that really big pump that they all wait for. And then what you have with Genius is low liquidity and no liquidity ultimately would only mean that if people are still using Genius, it ultimately means that the Genius contract is able to back all of the liquid Genius, possibly all of the Genius period that isn't burned indefinitely. And it's what debt does. So I think that's crazy. The fact that, because the Genius is AI and such, people who hold Genius, and many of you who hold cryptocurrencies, I'm sure you've heard many times, well, what is it backed by? Well, what is Bitcoin backed by? What was it backed by? And you're just sitting there like, well, what's your dollar backed by? What's your dollar backed by? Like, come on. All right, it's backed by, war and work and other things and workforce. Great. I think it's better for things to be backed by super hard assets. And I think blockchain assets are some of the best things to back something. You can get your liquidity immediately. You can quickly move to another area if something's getting hacked or having a problem, or, maybe you lost a lot, but you're able to move and rapidly. You're able to do that rapidly without anyone's permission. So Genius, the future of all of this at Genius looks quite inevitable that we'll be able to say, hey, Genius is fully backed. Or it's 2 times as backed, or it's 3 times as backed. Does anyone have any questions on any of those items? I know it's a lot of details.
So how do you view, as far as backing Genius, how do you view more types of collateral flowing into the stability pool? For example, now we have DAI and the native token, or we have USDC and the native token, right? Or BUSD, whatever. As more and more collateral gets hooked into it, for example, like the grantor says, okay, fine, maybe we can accept MakerDAO, or maybe we can accept something else, maybe even wrapped Bitcoin or something like that. How does the dynamic change with more types of collateral coming in? Does it increase the kind of like the
Oh, I got you.
the locked supply, or what?
It gives people more options. That's all, really. Like.
But as far as calculations, when you're saying that, with lack of outstanding liquidity, there's more backing inside of the pool. Now, are we talking about the two types of like backing, the native token and the stable? What if you have 5 or 10?
Correct.
Does that change anything?
What it changes is the options. So instead of there being like a native token in a stability, like a stable coin, like right now, if you want to issue Genius debt, right, and there may be a time in the future where the only way to mint Genius is via Genius debt. More on that in a bit. That's when you're looking at the end game there, but it gives more options. If 5 items are accepted in the collateral pool, if 5 items are accepted to issue Genius debt, then people have 5 options. Likewise, when people are redeeming Genius, then they'll also have 5 different options.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. The right now, like regardless of a grantor, an OA grantor, and regardless of a future like Genius DAO, regardless of those, because those can approve new collaterals to be accepted. They can also pause collaterals from being accepted. One thing that's good to note is that the one thing that can't be paused are the native tokens. So where people can redeem for Ether, for example, or for the Binance coin, or Matic, Polygon, etc., the native token, the token that is native to the blockchain itself, like Ethereum, that can't ever be paused. So there's always going to be a way for debt to be issued and settled. And also, does anybody have any questions? Any topic, really. I know people have a lot of strong feelings about what Corey did on the stream. And to be frank, you could see that he was emotionally panicked, and to be frank, I know the Hex community is bullying him, and I hope he can realize that, because I don't think that's right. Someone in here got us the video too, so we have that whole video now, and it had I thought it had some really good points with distribution, because that's an important part with any crypto. And today, Genius's distribution is working as planned, and people are enjoying it and they're using it. But Genius's distribution today is creating this inevitable, like the more people use auctions, the more people issue debt, the more people redeem their Genius for debt, and etc. Or the more people end early because it's worth it for them to end early. This accounting is making it more and more inevitable that Genius will eventually be fully backed by all the collateral in its pool, like all the liquid Genius, and potentially all of the Genius that is able to potentially be in circulation. That's really cool. So Genius is having its own distribution going on today, much like with Bitcoin miners every time Bitcoin miners would get some Bitcoin because they solved a block, they would distribute it on the open market. They would sell it, or they'd give it to a friend, or they would buy pizza. And then someone else, as they bought that pizza, the person who sold them the pizza gets the Bitcoin, right? And that distribution's happening today. Like I saw yesterday's performance was 46.1% on an annual basis for advanced miners. And that's huge. And that's a result of I guess they did it twice. That's the result of a whale testing out the proof of benevolence function and testing out how it distributes. So everybody who is mining, not only do they have base inflation being distributed to them, but they also have extra revenue, such as proof of benevolence, such as people ending their mining commitments early, and such as Genius Edition NFT pack purchasing. Which I bet there's a lot of people that want to know about that.
So that inevitability that you're speaking of, let's call it escape velocity for the token to be like fully backed. Every token emitted or every token in circulation is actually backed by any kind of collateral in a stability pool as it comes out of it or goes in, right? So right now you have on Ethereum, you have 131 billion outstanding. So at the price of 000145, it's about $19 million to do that. Are you speaking of like that escape velocity? Is that something to do with dynamics that slowly needs to creep up there, or do you mean by somebody comes in, spends $19 million, buys all the liquidity, and that's when it starts working? Can you talk more about like the path to that escape velocity, please?
Sure. And I'm going to make an assumption on what you mean by escape velocity, because after all, it's been a phrase in crypto for quite a while. But let me define that for the crowd, and you can correct me if you had a different idea. Escape velocity, by the way, refers to the pumping of a coin ends up happening so much or so frequent that your original holdings, that it makes it impossible for you to spend all of that at your current like living level, right? So like with Bitcoin, let's say you had 1 million Bitcoin, right? Well, I'm going to use easy numbers. So let's say you had a million Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was worth like 10 cents, and you have $100,000, and you're like, wow, cool. I spend $50,000 a year, so that's my living expenses. That's how I live. I've got 2 years that I could not work. That's awesome. And then a year later, Bitcoin goes to $1, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Bitcoin's $1. I spent $50,000 because that's how much it cost me to live per year. And now Bitcoin's $1. So I'll do the math for you. All that means that the person now has like $950,000 liquid. So someone who lives off $50,000 a year, they're looking at that going, dude, that's 19 years. Holy cow. Well, screw it. Why don't I up my living expenses by 4 times the amount? Why don't I live off $200,000 a year? Right? Which is going to make it so they're only living for like a little more than 4 years. So 4 years they have to live off that original Bitcoin. And then 3 years later, Bitcoin 20x's in price, right? Goes from $1 to $20 or $30. So you see, escape velocity refers to your holdings just, you can't spend them quick enough for them to be worth nothing. And with Genius, that's extremember possible. And I think it's going to happen. And it has to do with what we're talking about here, Genius debt. Now, so earlier I said like that point of like no return, and we're so early. We're incredibly early in Genius. Like anybody who's using Genius today, it's such an early time. So what do we see in that early time? We see collateral go into the collateral pool, and then we see some shrimp, some sharks, and some whales grab that collateral, right? Or they grab some of it. And so we see that happening a lot today. think of an engine, right? That's like puttering, like it's starting to start up, but it's like it's doing that putter kind of thing. Because when somebody, deposits, for example, like this happened with Avalanche, like a few weeks ago, I think. Someone put in like $8,000 and then another $8,000 into the Genius contract as collateral. And then what you had is, you had a certain price. Let's say it's $4 or something. What you had is, as people redeemed their Genius to get some of that collateral, the price kept increasing for the collateral. So if you got $4 per Genius from the Genius contract, when you redeemed your Genius, if you got $4 during it, then it was like the next person got it for $4.10. Someone redeems a lot of Genius, and then the next person gets like $5.60. Another person redeems it, and $5.70. Another person redeems it, $5.99, per Genius. So these are mechanics that everybody has seen, but then eventually what has happened so far is the collateral pool gets drained completely, right? Or it keeps building up until it's worth it for someone to drain it. And when that gets drained, cool. That means that the Genius that came in, that gets distributed to all of the collateral miners. But then there's no more redeemable Genius. The price starts over, so to say. So when earlier, saying when the amount of unsettled Genius debt is greater than the liquid supply, right? That means then in that given day where there's that liquid supply, people cannot drain the collateral pool. Let's say the collateral pool is 3 times larger. It makes it even more incredibly difficult for the amount of liquid supply of Genius, the circulating supply, makes it very difficult to drain that collateral pool. So what happens? The same mechanics that happened before. As people redeem, because the fee to redeem remains in the collateral pool, you end up having a higher ratio of collateral versus the amount of Genius in there. You end up having like a higher ratio of that. So then that's where when somebody redeems Genius, the next person who redeems at a higher rate. The next person, again, redeems at a higher rate. So when that is happening and it's impossible for people to drain that collateral pool, that's all you're going to see. Who knows what else you're going to see? I'm just talking about game theory here, what I believe is going to happen, what I see has happened. I'm not like acting as some financial advisor and giving advice. I'm looking at the numbers and how they were designed. I worked with the team for that, so I have, almost as much understanding as they do on the tokenomics, probably more because I've been looking at it a lot more while they've all been working and stuff. And yeah, probably more too, because always talking with them and different people, and the 2 hexagons that did it, they never talked to the group. I always talked with them separately. They very desperately did not want to get doxxed. They probably didn't want to get the same DM threats that Corey Costa was getting. So I understand these things really well. And then in that situation, that's where you have other like bizarre things I think that could happen, such as, okay, you have your open market. The liquidity in your open market becomes at some point too sexy for liquidity providers to keep their stuff liquid on a DEX. What do? Maybe people buy from the DEX and then sell to the Genius contract, or redeem the Genius that they just bought from the open market, redeem it from the Genius contract. Does that make sense? How Genius has many strategies designed to have designed to appreciate over time, designed with the intent to appreciate over time? I feel like
it does.
I feel like that makes a lot more sense than a lot of the other undeveloped language that we were all using.
It does make sense. Thank you. It's a lot of interesting information.
That's been where my passion has been lately, and I really want to how do you say it? I really want to illustrate that for people in the future, share different ways to illustrate it. I've been doing a lot of private talks on it, and people understand. And by the way, if you want to announce yourself, the independent security auditor for Genius is listening in right now too. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. If they want to say something about Genius audit, that'd be awesome.
Hey, sorry, I just had to turn my mic on here. My name's... Hi, how you doing, Robert?
I'm all right. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I would love to also share my perspective of you, because I got to work with you, and that was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm super now invested into Genius as a whole. Has been one of the coolest and honestly most complex projects I've ever audited, and same with my team. So I founded a blockchain security firm called Glipnir Security, and we basically focus on cybersecurity as a whole within the blockchain Web3 dApp space. So getting access to dive into something that has so many unique, complex points, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It took, and I'm sure Robert knows, it took a long time for us to get through it, but it really is one of the strongest contracts I've seen in terms of security, in terms of mathematics. I mean, the most people wouldn't even know where to start on the math with any of this. So we're really lucky to have had that opportunity. Excuse me.
Thank you, Anna. What I'd love to say about Anna, and I apologize. I was referring to you as, well, it may come off as referring to you as independent security auditor, but yes, Anna has she has a team, and she's from Glipnir Security, and Anna, I'm sure you saw it too. Like, I'm going to guess you read over the CertIC report as well, but what I'd like to say here is that, like when I say read, I mean like in depth. I don't mean just like looking real quick or stuff, but not only with Glipnir Security, but with CertIC, one thing that was really common was, the math looked like it was wrong. The math looked like it was, wait, hold on, why are you doing something like this, right? But Anna, I'll ask you then on that, Anna, but yeah, Anna is insanely, talented. I've worked with many vulnerability researchers in the past, especially with doing crypto software, blockchain software. And, Anna's awesome. But I thought it was so funny, Anna, and I think you did too, how there were so many mechanics of Genius where the auditors were just like, hey, you probably didn't mean to do this. This doesn't look like a good idea. It was just so foreign to everybody.
Absolutely. And piggybacking on that, so I have an MIT-backed education, and so do two other people in my organization. We're actually classmates together, and there's a couple, there were times where I just looked at this math and I was like, this is a lot. This is more than I thought there was going to be, but I think that really lends itself to adding this extra layer of security, because everything has been incredibly calculated. And if you really take a deep dive, especially not everyone reads the white paper, not everyone reads everything else, but if you just look at logic, linear regressions of the math that's there, it just, it was awesome. And I know that Robert really hired an awesome group of mathematicians, one of which I know very personally, who graduated from Yale. He's a PhD. He's amazing. And knowing that he worked on that project also was just I mean, there's really no comparison.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about somebody else, for example, until you said Yale. Yeah, it was great because so there was the intention in math that already existed behind something, but in order to implement that, and this has to do with, by the way, for anybody listening, what I'm about to talk about here has to do with the end miner fees, like the actual cost of ending a miner on Genius, not what the UI is guessing, but the actual cost over time being significantly less expensive than ending stakes, like, for example, hex stakes that have run for 1,000 days, and you look at the gas on that and you're like, oh my God. And especially, I mean, who knows, Ethereum may cap the amount of gas you can spend on a transaction in the future. And then all of us with, the 5555 club on Hex will be truly screwed. So what I'm about to talk about here has to do with, the design and intentions that came up with on how to create an ecosystem where, ending a miner would not run all the calculations necessary, but those calculations would be summarized. And so, what was his name? Like Luke, I think. Was it Luke, Anna?
Yeah, Dr. Luke Palin.
Okay, so it's gonna come in here. How dare you say my full name and dox me? Just kidding. People in this world don't care too much about doxing. They would love that for their career and such. But he and I was like, hey, we have this problem. We've got it figured out, but we don't know how to select the summary days properly, in the most efficient way, like that doesn't eat up too much gas and actually works, right? So he and I, for a whole week, were racking our brain on experimenting with different equations, different logical equations, and he solved a lot of problems. He was really intelligent, very genius. He solved a lot of problems, and some of them that were remaining, we had another mathematician solve them like so quick, couldn't believe it. It was like, dude, are you even a human? It was great. And speaking about Dai, by the way, Anna, not Dai the cryptocurrency, but Dai the math individual and smart contract developer. Thanks, Anna. Thanks for speaking on that and for coming out. People, I get the feel that a lot of people are dying to hear more from anybody involved in what they think, who has, been involved in the auditing or the planning or the development or the math or the Solidity development implementation of Genius. So thank you. I think a lot of people really appreciate that.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, for myself, I definitely appreciate it. I read both of the reports, and I can say that Glipner's security report was a bit more detailed to me. I think there was a focus on a lot of manual and logical things in it, and also, some of the things that were stated there, like, for example, absence of admin keys specifically, as opposed to, like, don't disprove a negative, like, if it's not there, don't report it. So I think it went a long way, and it will still go a long way to showcasing Genius as being more secure and more audited in the right way. Thank you.
I really want to say, Anna, feel free to cut me off if you want to say anything. But I really want to say, Glipner Security is a relatively newer firm, but I have to strongly recommend that for any people in smart contract development. I have to strongly recommend Glipner. Very professional, very thorough, like super thorough, and even on the side of penetration testing, things that you can't automate. You cannot automate penetration research and testing, vulnerability research testing. You cannot automate that, sadly. Hi. I'm glad, on the Corey Costa show earlier, I'm really glad that, I don't remember the person's name, but, they were saying a lot of FUD on the distribution of Genius, and that got me a chance to really, really talk more about something that I tweeted a little bit about a few days ago, the distribution. Cryptocurrencies and store of values, they really need more than just a good strategy, and a good team and good security review. They really need good distribution plan and etc. Anna, do you want to say something? All right, well, I appreciate everybody listening in here, and I appreciate you coming on. Shades, I appreciate you with that information. Anybody have any questions or something about Genius that they really want to learn more about or understand more for us all to discuss? Feel free anytime to raise your hand, do whatever it is. And can someone teach me how this actually works? I've never hosted a Twitter before.
I think if somebody asks to speak, I think there's going to be a notification, and then you kind of struggle to find where to press on it. But I think Anna was trying to speak, and I think I allowed her now. So I'm still learning too. So, but that's the interface.
That's okay. It's a learning curve for everyone. I'm still pretty new to the AMA space myself.
Robert, on distribution side, the 240 reserve supply that came online at the go live, right? And the 35 that was supposed to come over from Legacy Genie. It looks like it's all been emitted out, right? We are at 275 at least on Ethereum, last I've checked. Is that true? Do you have any more insight as to how many people actually claimed? And is there an outstanding supply? And if so, how much of it is out there?
Yeah, let me open up this spreadsheet I recently made, okay? It'll take me a second.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. That's cool.
Oh, no. I don't mind at all being put on the spot. And I think you all could tell by the Corey Costa interview that I definitely don't mind being put on the spot. I do still consider, people's, listeners, what they listen to, what they want to listen to, my own personal life and, those matters, not being public because things happen and, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But yeah, I don't mind questions that throw me off. I do like them. For example, in the Corey Costa interview, I kept telling him, cool, all right, say, what is it? He kept going on about, there's very disturbing stuff in here. And I didn't read everything, but I didn't get a chance to see anything disturbing or any allegations that were disturbing. I mean, I saw ones that were, but they're just untrue. It's as simple as that. But I was telling him, all right, let's talk about it. When I first got into Bitcoin, I thought, you know what? Bitcoin's got some amazing things about it that I could challenge myself to become as a person. When I first got into Bitcoin, I was a very different person. I never realized how paranoid I was. So 12 years ago, I was relatively much more paranoid than now. And now I wouldn't say I'm paranoid at all. But the thing about Bitcoin that I saw was how much power there was in being transparent. Even though a bunch of people kept saying, you can anonymously exchange money, I knew that wasn't the case, but I still thought there was a lot of good there. Maybe it's not 100% good, maybe it leaves things vulnerable, but I thought that was really cool. Being open source, being transparent, and etc. And I applied that with my businesses and applied that with other companies I worked with, and then got to find out places where it's actually not that great. But in the crypto world, trustless, immutable, transparent, I think is an excellent thing. So, by the way, that came from Shades. I appreciate your politeness on not wanting to put me on the spot. So I have it here. And so as far as the amount of Genius that was claimed from the contract, like that was claimed from the sacrifice, you can all verify this yourself too. Last I looked on Ethereum, like 2.5% had not been claimed yet. A little more than 6% had not been claimed on Binance Smart Chain yet. And by the way, this percentage is included with the liquid supply. And on Polygon and Avalanche, it was between 7 and 8.5% had not been claimed yet. Now, after 180 days in the contract, people will be able to claim on behalf, get a little bit of Genius, and have that go to the others.
Nice, thank you.
So clearly, more people claimed on Ethereum than the others, which may mean that a lot of people, and clearly there were many whales that got into the Genius sacrifice. The Genius sacrifice was definitely something where, people with smart money knew that this was not an opportunity to let go. They knew it was well worth the risks that they perceived. And Ethereum is definitely a whale community, right? They can afford crazy fees that your average person can't afford. And not just your average person, but even wealthy people look at it and they're like, oh, $100 for a transaction? I don't know about that. And it shows that more people are using Binance Smart Chain from the sacrifice. Well, not more than Ethereum, but it shows that less people for Binance Smart Chain claimed their sacrifice. And then next after that is Avalanche and the next Polygon. I was surprised to see from the Geni.best website that, even though 3 times as many sacrificers didn't claim on Binance Smart Chain, you have more miners on Binance Smart Chain, and you have more people who are all in mining, like 100% all in. They don't have any Genius liquid. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I appreciate you putting that data together.
And the liquidity on Binance, have you seen the numbers? I think they're running at about 36,000 a day versus Ethereum at like, I don't know, maybe like 10 or less. And then Avalanche and Polygon are under 1,000. So somebody's trading in and out on Binance, and that's like comparing to what the liquidity pool is, about 120, 130,000 USDC. You're churning like third or fourth of the money there, so it's impressive.
Yeah, Binance is pretty huge, which I think really shows too that Marshmallow said this many times in the beginning of like the Genius world, that, and we all know this, that people don't want to pay crazy fees to do things. The higher your fees, the less utility a lot of applications have. So I remember Corey wanted to talk about the multi-chain approach more, and then we actually didn't get to talk about it. Poor Corey. I don't know. Maybe he did it intentionally, but I know he's been bullied before by the Hex community. But yeah, we wanted to talk about the multi-chain approach, which I think is a great approach, because smart contracts today, they're a lot like software long ago, apps, smartphone apps for your iPhone, your Android, etc. And when it comes to apps, we have many different platforms, and people use these platforms because they're more convenient or they cost less. Just like you have these multiple chains out and people use them because they work how they want, or they're different and they have what they want, or they have the software that they want, or it just costs them less, right? Or costs them less to do the same thing. So, So that's what people call a platform. Platforms like iPhone, Android, iPad, laptops, Windows computers. And so the multi-chain approach is a lot like having your smart contract or your app, and that being not just running on iPhone, but running on all the other platforms out there: Windows, iPads, Android, tablets, etc. So that's what we have right now with Genius. Genius is on 4 chains, and it's on 4 chains. And I think there's going to come a time, I don't know how many people realize this now, but there's going to come a time when people realize, like, wow, this app does the same thing on all these chains. The same exact thing. Only difference is lower fees and different community, right? And when you look at the charts, there's something very similar with the charts too, which gives a lot of evidence to show that the AI and the strategy behind Genius is working.
Hey, I just want to say thanks, Robert, for putting this on. And hopefully you can make this replayable, because I'm getting some information here that I need to listen to 10 times over. But some great information. I think a lot of people know I listen to a lot of the content you put out there, and I've been here almost since the beginning. And I'm just getting so much great information from this AMA right this second. And then I do like the question that was just asked about what happens with the unclaimed Geni, because I actually, on the legacy Geni, had given a few friends some just so they could experience what this was. And I know at least one of them still hasn't claimed it. The other has claimed and just has yet to actually go and start their miners as they're trying to just get a grasp on it, which I need to walk them through that. But yeah, great information. And Shades, thanks for putting together all that data you're getting to us that we can check now on a daily basis. That's pretty awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dane. Yeah, Dane, you did an early video with Genius, and that's much appreciated.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, like I said, I just got to keep hearing this information over and over again so that I can, say it, how I would want to say it to somebody and be able to talk geniusly about it. But what I have been doing since I started my miners on the first day possible, I've actually been taking incremental, like short video shots each time I check on my miners, like either every other day or maybe once a week, and pointing out things that are happening. And I'm going to end up compiling that all together. So I will be shoving out some content here, and I'm happy to do so. It's been awesome to watch the project.
Yeah, your content's great too. Like I think your first video is, just simply how to purchase the legacy Genius token, like how to purchase the pre-token, right? And like you keep hearing these things over again. I keep hearing these things over again. We keep hearing how we all communicate this. And that was a big hurdle that Bitcoin had to go through, right? Because Bitcoin's language kept changing over time. When you have a child learn about something, they don't care about, they don't care about reading the white paper and stuff. They just use the toy. They just use the game or whatever, and they learn through there. And as adults, we tend to overconsume with intellectual stuff before we jump in, right? Or when we jump in. And so in my communication, I want to inspire people to, to experience it too. This is, from my understanding, all of our spaces have been recorded, or all the Genius spaces have been recorded. And in fact, even the Corey interview earlier was, I guess it was recorded and downloaded by someone else, which was great too. It had really great points in it. And information that's really important for people to understand, in general, for this industry, for these users.
I'll ask, because I know other people are wanting to know when NFTs.
Already. Yeah. Well, part of the answer is already. Now, as someone who develops like for Web3, like we have a public room on Telegram, t.me/Geni Crypto Dev. So GENICRYPTODEV as in development, Geni Crypto Dev. And, any developers who go in there can get the tools they need to make whatever app they want for Genius, like the ABI, for example. Developers will know what I'm talking about when I say ABI. And that's available there. So when it comes to the Genius Edition NFTs, although I say this, I know like nobody wants to do it, and I don't blame them. But the Genius NFTs, people bought packs. They're really excited about the packs. When buying the packs, those proceeds went to the stability pool, except for the native token because, some issue with the NFTs part. And the part where you can unpack the booster pack, the ultimate pack, where you can unpack that, you could run those functions yourself, having the ABI and knowing the Genius Edition contract. But of course, who's going to do that, right? Who's going to do that? So, the people working on the UI, that feature was like held back because, now remember, Genius NFTs was a separate development from Genius. However, Genius still, part of Genius's development plan was to have that possibility where NFTs could be plugged into it. And Genius, this isn't open source yet, but it should be. I mean, it's privately shared. It might be open source actually in the Geni Crypto Dev Telegram room. But so Genius, when it was launched, right, it had the ability and it had like a library saying, hey, Genius can send commands like this as long as the end user as long as you or me, we have that switch turned on called receive NFTs, a certain command will go to the contract that will say, hey, reach out to whatever NFT, edition has been attached by the grantor, right? And so when the people working on the NFT side, Anna included, she made her own art and it was really cool. And she made my favorite Elon Musk thing, which cracks me up. Like it's a play on Elon Musk and Twitter and the Genius Eagleon, like eagle/lion. I'm a bit excited. Sorry. I'm a bit excited. So when can people unpack, right? So that was delayed on the UI because of the fact that, we didn't want people to run into the fact that the Genius NFTs, the issue it had was the people who developed it, there was not enough testing, right? It was like a surprise thing. There was not enough testing and it didn't engage in Genius's tokenomics as well as it could because of some issues, but it did engage and activate the tokenomic with with the stability pool having a higher level of basically pumping the PSR rate. So here, I don't know when. It's a separate team. Last night I got to see more of the UI. I didn't get to play with it because, I didn't have the right configuration and they had already went to sleep, so I was sad. But from my understanding it's ready. The only thing they want to test is like a mainnet test, like something that works with a separate UI and is able to mock the correct Genius app on mainnet. Now, the people who test that on mainnet, myself and another, we're going to lose any Genius NFTs that we have. We're going to lose them by doing that, but I'm fine with that sacrifice just to make sure everything works for everyone else. So my understanding is that's the absolute last thing, that they just strongly recommend it gets tested. So it'll be the end of the week, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious. It's not a big deal to me. I didn't join Genius in the beginning thinking about NFTs, period. So it's cool to have them. It's neat to have that out there. And just to clarify with the packs, I guess the new term to use past couple weeks with checks is open edition. So is that how these packs will be for each series? It's just going to be unlimited minting available?
Can you say that again?
will the
Oh,
packs that
so
are
your
being
question is basically,
sold,
yeah.
yeah, will the packs that are being sold, are those just unlimited amounts that can be purchased? So I'm just calling it an open edition in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, correct. When so right now, how people get Genius NFTs is they, they buy packs, and then, when they unpack them, they see their Genius Edition NFTs. And the other way, of course, is by using the Genius contract and having the receive NFTs option turned on, which, by the way, when that UI gets updated, the receive NFTs option will be off by default because, it costs more gas to do that. And some people don't care about it. I've been very amazed and surprised by how many people came to Genius because they're like, yeah, NFTs, and how bullish they were on that. And I'm much more bullish now too, the more I understand the possibilities. But you see how people get these packs and how people get, excuse me, how they get the packs and minting NFTs in general. That's only available until the next edition comes out, whether that's a DAO that authorizes a next edition by voting, or whether it's, some other project that is like, cool, check out this second edition, check out all the stuff, here's all the code, grantor, will you please do this? And by the way, the grantor, it's a private capital company, very well organized, etc. They're going to want to look into that. Nobody wants any Genius NFT stuff doing something malicious. So safety is in mind too. So what we all mint today for the Genius NFTs, we're not going to be able to mint it anymore in the future once another edition comes out. And I foresee each edition having its own like utility even. Like right now, a utility is educational, fun, collectibles. It could be a required asset for something in the future that you stake an NFT. It depends on the future. But ultimately, the core of Genius is still immutable, and it's still going to work the way it does. The next edition of Genius NFTs, here's an example. Like, I don't know what the next edition is going to be, but I do know the developers of the first edition, and I do know that one idea they had, like, here's just an example, was like Genius Notes or something. Like Genius Notes. Okay, what is that? An NFT that basically holds, let's say, 1 billion Genius or 1 million Genius or 100,000 Genius, etc. So I didn't get why that would be like neat or cool or anything like that. But then I found out that the gas expense for sending an NFT, like an ERC-1155 NFT, the gas expense is a good chunk less. It's a lot less than sending an ERC-20 token. And that, I didn't expect anything like that. I try not to expect. But I was like, really? Okay. Now I see why this idea here, it seemed redundant. It didn't seem smart. And now I'm educated a little better. And I know that it's a cool idea. Remember, major bull market Ethereum, just sending an ERC-20 token was costing anywhere between $20 and $40. And I'm sure people saw much more than that. Right? So imagine you have, some Genius you want to move for a good reason, or for a trade reason. And instead of it costing you $50 at the height of a bull market, it costs you $30. Or instead of it costing you $5, it costs you $3. So I thought it was cool.
Robert, NFTs being NFTs, not an ERC-20, not a native, can they be accepted into a stability pool technically?
Yeah, they can. If all it would take would be the DAO or the grantor to, well, actually, no, maybe not. Maybe not now that I think about it. No, the collateral pool will only accept native token or ERC-20. So is it possible? It could be, because, the ERC-1155 or the NFT that costs less to transfer, because the other NFT standard costs more, a good chunk more to transfer. But it could be, because the functions that are needed for ERC-20 for acceptable collateral in the pool it's not that it has to be an ERC-20. It just has to have certain functions. So yeah, so to answer your question, actually, yeah, I think that is possible.
So basically, you're saying that somebody can wrap an NFT into a interface that can be accepted into a stability pool, and that way you can back Genie with NFTs.
Yeah, people could wrap their Genius with like one of the editions of the future, and the editions control whether or not they no longer function afterwards. Like for example, if you have Genius packs, right? If you have booster packs and unlimited packs, while you can't mint new ones, because a new edition came out, the first edition contract allows you to unpack them regardless, which, let's say 10 years from now, like people really want some of the older educational collectibles. I mean, how many packs are going to be available in 10 years or in 5 years or in 3 years, right? Could be like none or some of them. So it's definitely a collector's thing. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, people, that's just what's possible. So Genius NFTs are, Genius is showing the DeFi world how to do things differently, such as how to upgrade a contract. No, don't migrate it and have a third party or trusted source, or don't have a proxy contract that has had security issues in the past, and then whoever has the admin keys for that could change at any time in the future. Genius has proof of exodus, which shows like program a way for the data to be exported to another contract and call that other contract with that data. So Genius shows a different way to upgrade contracts in an immutable way that goes by people's will, gives them the free choice and the free will to do that. But Genius also shows how to wrap Genius and upgrade Genius without affecting its core principle, without affecting the things people agreed to in the first time, how to upgrade it in a way that's quite intimate and works great and beautifully, versus, slapping this new Hedron token on Hex and slapping a Cosa and slapping this, and then Maximus DAO comes out, and then they have all their other items, and then it fails to do things with, etc., with Hedron. So Genius is also, as you, Shades, as a developer, you see it's also inspiring developers to think differently and do things differently and to do DeFi differently.
I think it's immensely it's undervalued, this idea of Exodus, and, for upgrades. How many times did we see, if you did not do something in a V1, you're going to have to deploy V2, right? And that's going to be a completely different token. There's going to be a completely different, name or ticker for it. And then there's confusion of, centralized, basically, minting, reminting, and wrapping and unwrapping on the other side. So I think, like you've said, Robert, I think it's very, very useful, and we're already seeing it with Hexodus, right? It's the reverse Exodus, right? It's when you take some liquidity from somewhere, and shy of the approval part, which is kind of, somebody needs to look at it to proofread it and whatever. The core functionality of actually issuing things, right, and registering is working beautifully, right? And so I think it's going to be, like, maybe not in short term, but going on when new features need to be added in some way, shape, or form, I think it's going to be a huge benefit for the ecosystem here.
Correct. And so Genius is inspiring innovation in the DeFi space, and that's cool. And, remember earlier we had FUD, and there's always FUD, and, it's fine. One thing I did want to touch up on, though, is, you have these Genius NFTs that can work very intimately with Genius, and Genius itself, just using Genius mints them, which is a great way to onboard new users or teach users other ways to use Genius. Because after all, people had other ways to learn to use Hex, and that's why, like, the Hedron world, Icosa world, that's why this world is has grown to the level it did because people do love to learn these new things. They do love new features. And with Pulse Bitcoin, Pulse Doge going into Pulse Bitcoin and ASIC mining, this stuff is fun. It's like, it really is like financial gamification. And that was one of the core first principles of Genius that really wasn't talked about much, but was really the fact that this is gamification. It's gamified. Genius is gamified. And while Genius inspires innovation in the DeFi space with Proof of Exodus and Genius NFTs, that's cool. Some people were saying like, oh, Genius is just a copy coin. It's a copy of Hex. And look, they're copying ZenFTs. Motherfuckers. How dare you? No, I'm kidding. But a lot of people don't realize that Genius NFTs came out well before ZenFTs did. It was known, and I didn't understand this with the tokenomics team, the development team. I didn't understand this. I'm glad somebody else did, because that's what teams are for. I didn't understand how to have an immutable contract. I mean, I understood how to have a mutable contract that could be upgraded, but I didn't understand really a way where it could have things added to it that were intimately paired with it and pumped its own tokenomics natively, thus also costing less in gas. I didn't understand how that was possible and how it could work with the original contract. I didn't really understand the potential of NFTs at all. And seeing what I've seen in the last, month or two, or 3 or 4 months, and really seeing what the future can look like for that, I've been very surprised, and it's quite amazing. You have here, so many cryptos working so hard to fix their tokenomics, right? Even Zen working to fix its tokenomics. I think Zen is amazing, but a lot of people look at the chart, right? And it's hard to look at the Zen chart and recognize that there's a financial opportunity, but I personally believe there is. So they're fixing their tokenomics with Zen NFTs. You have a lot of these coins out there that are fixing their tokenomics, fixing them. And then you have Genius, where it was planned out very well by what I believe to be the absolute best people in the DeFi space. No offense to Alex, because, we use him a lot more for his math and theoretical stuff. But in my opinion, yeah, the people who were part of this, I do look forward to more individuals doxing themselves, like Anna, like Di, like Alex, because it's truly amazing, and a lot of people are giving me so much of the credit for it, and I don't deserve even half the credit. It's awesome. What was behind Genius is like 75% Satoshi and 25% me.
Thank you, everybody who worked on it. Whoever wants to dox themselves or come out and say who they are or not, either way, you guys have done an amazing job.
The web UI developer wasn't here, I think, but I was trying to get him to talk a little bit. He listens. I didn't realize he listens to the community so much, which is great. I realized this recently. For inspiration on the web UI. So, hey, everyone here, please, if there's requests and, or things that you think are cool about the UI and you want to compliment, and other things that, you want to say about it, this is a good space, by the way. So I'll let you all do that while I probably leave soon, but this is a good space to do it, and can almost guarantee you the web UI developer will listen.
Robert, is Hexus fully functioning now? I've seen some people asking about re-registration being pending. What is the story there? What's possible timeline for getting that?
Hexadus is completely done on the UI. There is a, excuse me, it works, with the UI talking with the contract, it works 100% now for what has been launched. And my understanding is that the launch team is going to get is tonight is going to get that re-registration button in there. There's some quirks that they're saying they're trying to like fix and not sure how to fix it. But let me say here what the quirks are for all of you. The quirks are if you deleted all your cookies for the start.geni.app website, if you deleted all your cookies or cleared your whatever, you probably won't be able to re-register right away. But if you have your cookies still there, you will be able to re-register. They said they're launching that tonight. They might kill me for saying that, but I don't see why not, because they basically came up with the realization that they can't. And myself talking with them, it didn't sound at all like they could fix that. So for anybody who can't re-register, right, be patient. That means of re-registering can happen, and it may just mean having your own RPC server in order to read as many events and read a ton from the blockchain that most public servers that your MetaMask use don't allow you to do. So anybody who doesn't clear their cookies like crazy, they'll see in the Hexadis section an area to re-register. They probably see it now, but it's disabled out. Don't clear your cookies. From my understanding tonight, like late tonight, that's going to be launched. People will be able to re-register older hex stakes that were granted to them, and they'll be able to basically re-grant it too, due to this issue and this mistake. And if you did clear your cookies, don't worry. A solution, I'm sure, will come up. It's in everyone's best interests. FYI, I think the first batch of Hexadis, don't quote me on this, I'm not the one who was looking at it, approving it, etc. Excuse me. But my understanding is that the amount of hex that was nuked, not including the interest, the amount of hex that was nuked in the first batch and times before the UI went down was more than $250,000, which is pretty awesome.
It is, and it caps at 1.2 billion GENI, right?
Yep, and 1.2 billion genius across all 4 chains. And Corey Costa and I, we were going to talk a little bit about that too. And it seems the Hex community doesn't want that to be known, but Hexicans would very much love to know, hey, if you early ended a stake and lost any principal from November 25th and onward, November 25th of last year, if you lost principal, if some principal was nuked of your original principal, you're eligible to do a Hexadis and get a Genius miner. Get a Genius miner for as many days as you want to specify that for.
So what you're saying is that the ES part is optional as long as the ES was done after November 25th, right? People who
on November 25th or after. That was that was one of the big whole things between remember, the 25th of November, kind of playing a joke on the whole V is for Vendetta thing. And, V is for Vendetta. Yeah. It was also going to be a launch date. I want to be transparent about that.
Yeah.
I think there may have been, I see some DMs for people asking me questions from the room. One
I have
is
a question.
I guess people. Sure. And I'll see.
Sorry, this is Mike Volkin. I just want to jump in with a lot of this stuff I'm still new with cryptocurrency, but in terms of tokenomics, still a little bit over my head, but I'm learning. But so my question is a little bit more generic. I might be putting you on the spot, but for someone that has 1 hour a week of quote unquote free time, or 1 hour a week that we can make free to help Genius in any way, from the community to the token, what would you recommend that we do in an hour?
Oh, for people who want to recommend the token to friends and family?
Yeah, that, or, being on social networking, what are some common things that anyone can do to help promote Genius in the community?
Good question. Well, one thing I do think is, here's what I would do personally, putting myself in the shoes of, someone who wasn't involved in, research and development. is to check out the Simply Genius video series that you made. Mike, those are awesome. Like, everybody loves them. I can't imagine how much time you put into making those, and how sorely needed it was to have short videos to help people understand. So, with my time, and I've done this many times before when I was really excited about a cryptocurrency, is, one, inspire people like, hey, check this video out. I never would send people white papers in the past, but I would say, hey, I think you'd find this really interesting. It's a cryptocurrency that I'm using that I'm like really excited about, but check this video out. It explains it a little bit, right? Like, not explainer videos, because they just kind of, they're good. But I would refer them to your Simply Genius video series. There's geni.to/Simply Genius. Other than that, I would give some genius to people. I know two community members were talking on a space about how, they would give it as a gift, like give like $10,
Yeah.
20 or 5, and then, people could see how to use it and kind of get things clicking,
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. I think my next content piece I was going to make is a bunch of marketing challenges for people to do day by day. Cause a lot of people, my friends, have asked me, what can I do? And, if they're not marketers, it's kind of hard. I'm a marketer. So if they're not marketers, they don't have ideas. So I was going to spoon feed them through some marketing challenges, but just wondering if you had any ideas, and those are good ones. I'll send them to the video series to start so they can get a fundamental understanding of everything.
Cool. Yeah, Mike, thank you for being so bullish on Genius and being, understanding it. And like everybody else here, like, our enthusiasm is, it's fun. It's cool. We've made our own community. We're using an app that we love.
Yeah, you're welcome. Looking forward to the in-person event, whenever that will be.
Yeah, true. So I had DM'd to me one that is people wondering the advantage of doing it like a 90-day stake instead of a 180-day stake. And I don't know if I would say there are any advantages other than you have your IQ shares longer, and your miners do better longer for that. It's one thing for sure is it's not going to cost more gas doing 180 days. Because, for example, the minimum number of reads it's going to be for 90 days, like gas charges will be 9, right? And for 180 days, the minimum number of reads or gas charges from the contract, gas that you're charged, will also be 9. So there's probably no difference there, and that of course depends on when you started the miner and such. It's a good question though.
Robert, this question is not very well formed. I just thought of something I thought I'd ask you.
Let's form it.
So the LPs, the new batch of LPs, I don't want to go into details when, how, or what, but if the end goal is to pump the stability pool at the expense of liquidity, right? To as we've talked about this, point of no return where Genie is backed by collateral, would it make sense to implement something, or at least think about, instead of doing the LP on the DEX, do some form of a collateralization with that group? I don't know if it's even possible, what it is. Huh?
Yeah, it's possible. It makes sense. And let's see, like last week, spent a good amount of time, talking with, like, for anybody in the liquidity provider room, there's a big community in that room that, is dedicated to providing liquidity. But, the people who have organized that community, brought that community together, had written declarations and such, so people can, understand what incentives there were for that, right? Or what whale incentives were passed down. So I talked with people that deal a lot with that. I'm sure you know him by name as well for declarations, and another liquidity provider, another two liquidity providers. And because, they're looking at liquidity, seeing how to grow liquidity, right? And so let me say that here. How do you grow liquidity? Well, you got to understand there are people out there and groups out there. I know one that I think his company was called Virtual Alpha. He started a mining company, but I think 3 years ago he wasn't doing mining at all. I caught up with him. All he and his team were doing were looking at the tokenomics all day long for different for what's going on in the DeFi space. That's all they did. Like, they would look at meme coins like Shiba Inu and such, and they would look at it and they would determine, what risk they wanted to make and how they would deploy capital. Capital being, I think he said like a minimum that they would deploy is like $3 million. So they would look for more like mature items or projects, or I don't know the whole situation there, but we talked a little bit about it. So I thought that was amazing that these were people that got away from Bitcoin mining and had done a significant amount of that, more than myself. And I did I had 4 processing centers across the USA. I did a lot. I organized it. I had a team. But seeing somebody like that move completely from mining to liquidity, that's cool. Or yield farming, et cetera. So what I'm saying is that there are companies out there where this is all they do. There are business partners out there where on the side, this is what they do, right? They analyze these things and they provide liquidity. They want that. They want to drive that revenue. They trust it more than money market accounts and Roth IRAs and et cetera. They trust it a lot more, as long as they trust the tokens, right? As long as they trust the things that have been audited and et cetera. So a lot of these old school people, well, I wouldn't call them old school necessarily, but a lot of them, they're going to have a lot of their trust and revenue in proven tokens, right? So there's a lot of people, groups, et cetera, that look for opportunities like this. And when Genius gets in front of their attention and they accept it as their risk parameters, it's going to be a no-brainer for them to have Genius paired with USDC and et cetera. And likely they'll do Ethereum first, right? Because of just the notoriety and the popularity of Ethereum. But I'm sure the moment they saw Binance Smart Chain, they would say, never mind, we're going to Binance Smart Chain for the liquidity providing, or vice versa. So that's one for liquidity. And 2, so I explained this to, the people that liquidity is their thing with Genius. And, or not all of them, because, what is it, like 100 people, 105 people. But the other thing that was explained to a smaller group as I've been developing this language for Genius debt and the stability pool is, hey guys, if you're looking to drive revenue, attract liquidity, this and that, et cetera, wait for me to show you some spreadsheets and stuff on what I'm working on right now, because Genius debt is an incredible way to do that, especially with Genius debt being so eager for people to settle that debt, and Genius debt itself often being issued for a price slightly under market price, or even recently, and probably still now, for Avalanche and Polygon, having a really huge chunk of a discount.
Yeah, for sure. I just think that, like when you were saying about positive, outcome, the liquidity providing has a DEX risk, right? Where stability pool is almost guaranteed to cover you on the downside because you're getting your collateral back, right? Just like if you compare impermanent loss with DEXs on a stable pair, it's a lot more defined in the stability pool, and you can actually track that metric within the 90-day miner that you're doing. Plus, you're earning instead of doing the LP, you're actually doing the collateral mining.
Yeah, the one thing that, no matter how you look at it, like if you're strategizing buying Genius debt, if you're strategizing on depositing collateral instead of buying it from the open market, there's so many ways you can spin it. But the one thing that is universal, right? If you're able to get Genius debt issued under market price, then the one thing that is universal is that you got a better deal than buying it on the open market. No matter what amount of Genius you get back, I mean, no matter what the performance rewards or the, AKA interest, no matter what, you're getting that in the form of Genius token. But now when it comes to the principal that you got discounted, no matter what the percentage is of, you getting your collateral back versus getting Genius token instead because it was settled, whatever that ratio is, doesn't matter. The one thing that universally everyone gets is a discount.
Yeah, you're basically buying a bond at a discount, right? And then you're working up the coupon to the maturity. If that's the traditional finance, right, that they will understand it completely. I don't even see the downside with the stability pool.
Well, you see, by depositing, somebody said before, like, all right, what's the catch? Like a New Yorker gangster, what's the catch? And there's no catch, but by you doing that, you're getting a discount and you're giving tremendous utility to all the Genius users too. For example, someone who, Genius still has it's so early, it's ridiculous. Like this is, in my opinion, this is the dream that I always look for and have found, 5 or 6 times in crypto land. This is exactly what crypto investors look for. They look for things like this. It's right here, right now. It's right here, right now. And the people who, are locked up and want to FUD so their bags don't get worth less, they have reasons or discriminations. So here, by you getting Genius debt at a discount, and universally you're getting it better than on the open market rate, what you end up doing is other users who have a large portion to sell for Genius, they can redeem it instead and many times get a better deal than selling it on the open market and driving the open market price down. No other token has this.
Correct.
No store of value has this, and it's really cool. You all, I have to get going. I did realize what time it is. I appreciate all the questions, but yeah, everybody, please, I'll keep listening while I get ready. But I do have to get ready now, but I'll keep listening, and thank you everyone for your questions and especially support with the, I don't know what happened with Corey Costa, but thank you everyone. And I hope this was really insightful. My language has developed a lot and I'm more excited about Genius now than I was ever. And I'm just very excited.
Thank you, Robert. Take care.